Check one. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Liberty School District. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Justice for all. What a crowd. And did you all enjoy your day? Okay, just checking. All right, so approval of the agenda.
I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Nick?
Yes.
Jen? Yes. AJ? Sorry, Dan?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And then, honoring excellence, Mr. Ackerman.
Thank you.
Good evening. Have a nice honoring excellence tonight as we jump into our brief agenda. I wanted to recognize a staff member this evening, but before we jump into that, I just wanted to do a quick recap. You may have been able to see this on some of our social media outlets today, that the show went on for the Battle of the Brains competition down at Union Station, and we had a talented group that was into the finalist category. They were surprised over at Ridgeview, the Peak students, back in December, and Miss Renee Sturtz and her crew were down there and represented us well. They didn't win the big prize, but they still came away with $2,500, and they had several commitments tonight, weren't able to be with us, but we're going to, as we put on the graphic, coming in February. So we'll look forward to congratulating that crew, as that was quite an accomplishment. Want to introduce Melissa Alshouse. She is the art teacher from Franklin Elementary. Many of you in this room have seen her story, and want to thank Kelly House from the Courier Tribune. Had a chance to connect with her in recent weeks. Neat story. Melissa, I'm going to have you come up and join me here at the podium. I know you love to be embarrassed. The first thing, I actually had a chance to connect with her. I had her scheduled I was going to come over there to Franklin to connect this morning, and of course we had the inclement weather day, and I emailed her early this morning. I said, shoot, I wish it would have worked out, and she said, well, I'll be up there at 10:45 if you want to come. I'm going to be painting of all things. So I still had a chance to connect with her, and it's just a really neat story. You know, I remember growing up, and many of you that have been around Kansas City, the parade of homes was always a big thing in Kansas City. And now, I think even bigger is the parade of hearts, the hearts all around Kansas City. And she had one of the hearts selected, and it's going to be displayed coming up later this spring. And what's really neat, and she shared the photo on the far left, that, I believe you said, was from your kitchen table at the very beginning of this process. And she's been able to share this journey with all the art students at Franklin Elementary. And the photo is an example of, again, from her kitchen table. And it shows them that not everything always goes as planned, right? Risk-taking, trial and error are just a few of those experiences. And she told me this morning she's 48 hours into the project, still has the other side, but how cool is that on the right side? It's a wedding theme, and your theme is hope and unity, which I think is really, really neat. In case you aren't familiar with it, Parade of Hearts is a public art experience that celebrates our diversity, unites communities, and supports nonprofits by placing beautifully designed hearts by local artists throughout the Kansas City region. I know you might have a few questions, so I did a little Q&A with her. The project needs to be completed by the end of February, so she's going to be working hard here in the coming weeks to show her students that she can meet deadlines. Dr. Tucker, take note of that.
No comment.
The hearts will be displayed all around Kansas City from April through August. No locations have been selected yet. I was curious about that. And then I think what's also neat is the hearts will be auctioned off to support local charities later this summer. So if anyone's interested in this room, that will be up for bid. Want to thank several members of the Franklin team that are with us tonight. Tremendous support. Principal Amy Tobin, Jasa Hartman, assistant principal, and several staff members. I like that. Good theme. But yeah, so deserving. We wanted to recognize you. And an added bonus, breaking news, and I had a chance to congratulate her. She is Franklin Elementary's Teacher of the Year. Right. Congratulations. Great job. We will be hearing from her soon, as she's going to keep us up to date on how the project goes. And if any of you want to get by Franklin, I'd highly... Dr. Tucker, in a meeting yesterday, asked if we could wheel the heart in here. And it didn't, we couldn't get it on the elevator. But congratulations, Melissa, and an awesome job. We also, and Tom Dawkins, had a chance to connect with him a couple of weeks ago. He's not here with us tonight, but had a chance to connect with Dr. Marriott in Human Resources to talk about an upcoming video project. And really the goal is to focus and highlight some of our great staff in the district. And we're starting on our support staff here in the coming weeks, and then we'll transition to our certified staff as well. But many of you may know Tom Dawkins at Warren Hills. He was at Liberty Oaks for many years. Fantastic representative of our district. And what we wanted to do, that tonight's our premiere of this series, about a 2.5 minute video talking about his experiences with us. And Denise, if we'd roll that, here's the premiere.
Unlike any other lunchroom ever.
What we're going to do, we're going to do an audible here.
We should do an audible.
Everyone looks really good in the audience from here.
You're able to clean. Okay? You know you're part of the team because it's an aspect of the job that's needed.
All right. There we go.
I have always been around clean business. I worked with my parents as a younger man in my teenage years, and my wife and I got married. We worked in a cleaning business of our own. It started here in 2003, and then in 2005,
We're going to anticipate just a little bit longer here. I'm going to just. Anticipation's building.
That's what it's done for, on purpose, because it'll be great.
If I was able to go into Liberty Oaks, I have always been around the cleaning business. I worked with my parents as a younger man in my teenage years, and then my wife and I got married. We worked in a cleaning business of our own. Started here in 2003, and then in 2005, I was able to go into Liberty Oaks as the custodial supervisor there, and spent 14 years over there. And then I'm over here now. My younger sister actually started me on the career path. I was in Warrensburg. She lived up here, and she was working here, and she said it was an amazing job, best job she's ever had. I applied, and really, it's been a really nice career. I tell you what, it's just gratifying. I mean, because you come in my department, in the cleaning custodial department, you come in and you're able to clean, and you know you're part of the team because it's an aspect of the job that's needed. But at the same time, it's rewarding because the people that you're working for appreciate what you're doing for them. My favorite thing is to interact with the young ones, get to know them, get the high fives and thank yous and all the bright smiles and, hey, how you doing, Mr. Dome, and through the hallways. That is what really is exciting to me. I enjoy. And of course, the kids. They're going to make mistakes and messes, but that's pretty much job security for me. My personal opportunity is to touch base with them, teach them it's okay to make mistakes, but take the opportunity to take responsibility and clean that up and help others clean their messes up. And you just really don't know the impact you're having. You know, I'm here to do a job, manage the building, take care of making sure everything is lined out for events and make sure everything's clean. But then in year 2018, that graduating seniors nominated me for a position as an honorary teacher, and I got to go to the graduation class. So that was the ultimate reward because, again, you don't really know how much success you'll have with an individual, but that right there is tangible evidence that all of us touch individuals' lives. The success I have is because we're all part of the same team. Ultimately, you become part of LPS community, and that's just the most rewarding thing you can have right now. We are all united in common goal of serving our community and our young ones and making sure they succeed.
That's awesome.
Appreciate Tom. Like so many that we interviewed, he wasn't totally thrilled about being asked to do it, but I think he had a good experience, and Tom's a great guy. So appreciate him, and we're going to be continuing the series later this week. We'll be over at Schumacher talking to some folks in our nutrition services, and we'll just continue on into the spring. So I guess I would wrap up by saying there were a couple of my friends from Liberty North that asked if we'd have school tomorrow. I told them the same thing I told my three children as I left. If you don't have your homework done, I would get it done tonight. That concludes honoring him.
Thank you. And we typically take some time to come out and talk to people, so we will reconvene at 7:25.
are burning for some reason. No, they do that from time to time.
Is there anybody else who hasn't or who got one? Okay. So here's the rules. Speakers may address any subject concerning Liberty Public Schools and/or education. Board members will not engage in debates or discussions with those speaking, other than to seek clarification of their comments. Speakers will address the board from the podium, are asked to keep remarks concise and to the point, and will not repeat what someone before has said. A person or persons may speak only once at the meeting. If several patrons wish to speak on the same topic, the board president may restrict the input to one or two spokespersons. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. Profane language or comments that constitute a threat to the safety of others is prohibited. Spontaneous comments from the audience will not be tolerated and may close public comment. In the event board members agree to normal flow of business is being unnecessarily delayed, they may, by majority vote, waive or end public comment. Concerns brought forward during public comment may be addressed by the superintendent or appropriate staff members, usually within a week. So, Alex, you are up. I'm glad you brought your crew with you as well.
I get to go.
You may begin.
All right. Hi, I'm Kais Perez, and I'm currently a junior at Liberty North. These are my classmates, Tyson Zieber.
Jayla Smith,
We are honored to be here this evening to present information about the Anatomage table and how it will benefit students across many science courses at Liberty North. We were fortunate to see one of the 4 Anatomage tables in the North Kansas City School District at Staley High School last week, and we were all excited about how that technology could be used by students at Liberty North. In its first year, the goal is for students of Biology 1 and 2, AP Biology, Zoology, and all 4 PLTW biomedical courses to use this table in their coursework. In future years, after the training of teachers and updates of software, students in Physics 1 and 2, Earth and Space Science, Physical Science, and all levels of chemistry will benefit as well. Essentially, every science course at Liberty North, including virtual courses, as well as sports medicine and child development, can benefit in some way from the Anatomage table and its software. The Anatomage table is an approximately 7-foot by 2-foot interactive touchscreen computer, which allows students to visualize and interact with scientific models. This includes vertebrate cadaver dissections, scientific simulations viewed in incredible detail, as well as utilizing current diagnostic tools used in real-world medical settings. These simulations and cadavers would otherwise be inaccessible to students at Liberty North. This table is truly one of a kind. Future software updates to the table have the ability to add even more benefits and simulations to the physical sciences. This table will help science students at Liberty North by increasing subject retention, providing the opportunity to interact with their coursework in a hands-on way, easing the learning process, and simplifying complex concepts with visual, engaging, and interactive tools. As shown in your handout, this table touches on each category within the LPS graduate profile. Your handout also has a QR code to a 3-minute video that will allow you to see the table in action, not only in the biology aspects, but also ways it could be utilized in the future across all science classrooms at Liberty North. We can't thank you enough for allowing us to be here tonight, and we appreciate your continued support. We appreciate your consideration in giving us access to this technology, as well as your continued support of the students at Liberty North. Thank you.
Dude, y'all crushed this.
Thank you. You can breathe now.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I have none. We cannot. Do you want to be contacted, though, because you did not put the X?
The answer is yes, by the way.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes, I do. All right, yes, I do.
Thank you, guys, for coming.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate the information. So on to consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member.
I move the board approve consent agenda items 3.1 through 3.6.
Second.
Nick,
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Drew.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Angie.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up is scrolling.
Yeah, I know, lots of.
Scrolling. There should be music to go with this interlude.
Like Jeopardy?
Could be. All right, reports from administration.
Thank you. The first item, 4.1, is our Innovation and Learning Report, and we'll turn it over to Dr. Moore.
Good evening.
Hello.
I wanted to give a special shout out to Dr. McCoy and Dr. Van Batavia, who worked with the students at North to put the presentation together. I know Dr. McCoy has been very much involved and invested in getting them over to see how the table works, and they're very excited about the possibility with that. So thank you for listening to them. As I've mentioned over the last couple of months, Katie Martin, whose book we're studying during our time together, was here today, and the plan was for her to be in classrooms across the district.
Keeps happening,
And
doesn't
that
it?
didn't, goes to plan. But it actually worked out really well. So she came today. She worked with our innovation and learning coaches. And then we had a principals meeting that was scheduled for this morning, and we rescheduled it to this afternoon. So all of our principals were able to be there, and they worked with her this afternoon. And so she will be out in schools tomorrow morning. We will go to, I think we're scheduled to go to 6 schools tomorrow to really look at how our graduate profile is coming alive. And you saw a good example of that with this, but how it's coming alive in our learner progressions across the system. So we'll go to K-12 schools, and then she'll come back in the afternoon, and we are going to work again with our innovation and learning coaches. Also, within our report, there was some iReady data shared. As we had mentioned, we did round 2 of that, so you can see some of our math and reading data. I just wanted to highlight students who are on reading success plans showed a lot of growth. In order for them to be removed from the reading success plan, they have to have one more test that shows that growth. So after we do it at the end of the year, if students have shown success, then we'll take them off of the reading success plan. But in reading, all of our schools ended up in the quadrant that was high performance, high growth, which is great. So we're very, very excited about that. And we showed some great improvement in math as well. And then walkthroughs picked back up this week. We are at South Valley Middle School on Thursday. If you would like to join us, just wanted to remind you of that. And then finally, wanted to just remind you that on February 16th, we have our district-wide professional development day, and we will be together as a staff in the morning at Liberty North High School. Our theme is Shine On, and we're really going to take that time to dedicate it to the impact that teachers make in the classroom. We will have 90 sessions put on by staff within LPS, and they will, over 2 sessions, we'll have 90 that are tied specifically to one of the 5 areas of the graduate profile. So we're really excited about what that morning has to offer. And that is all that I have for this evening. If you have any questions, I will take those.
So I love the progress we're seeing from the iReady diagnostics, and I'm sure I bring this up every single time. I follow the red because it's just an easier color to look at. It seems as you go through K through 8, the red just increases. We're still outperforming all the benchmarks we're up against. But that red just always bumps up as you go from K through 8. Thoughts on that as to why we see that across math and reading?
We see that across, I think almost every district sees that, and I think it's just as students get older that it kind of, as you look at panorama data as well, it's kind of trying to get students to have more of a sense of that self-efficacy, sense of belonging. It's just a little bit tougher to get them maybe invested in taking the assessment, maybe taking it seriously. And, with the iReady, if they start taking it at kindergarten, and those students who've been with us this entire time, it's a little bit more difficult. So we have to work even harder at the middle level to get students to understand that this is a tool to help see how they improve, how they grow. And we do see the growth, and we don't necessarily, when you look at the scores, you don't necessarily see growth between maybe from first grade to second grade, like for an individual student, but you are seeing growth, which goes with what we're trying to do with Success Ready, right? Is that through year. And so as long as we see that growth and they continue to make growth, that's what's important. But I think, as I said, it gets a little bit harder with these assessments, and then trying to figure out if it is the right assessment or what other measures we have that we can look to see that they're still making that progress.
Yeah, no, that's good.
There's also the compounding nature of falling behind. Right, and so that's very real, particularly as kids move from grade level to grade level to grade level to grade level, and you still have pre-existing gaps. We've talked about that, the board's aware of that, but again, something has to give in order to kind of reverse that trend for those students that are getting further and further behind. So.
I can give multiple, and I've said this before, I can give multiple examples and personal examples of students who maybe went up 2 grade levels just between the fall and the winter this year, but they're still below grade level. But we have to celebrate that growth, 100%. Right, that they're doing. But when they are in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, it's that much more difficult to.
Well, and what I appreciate about this is having the mid-year measure so that we have the time to sit and look at that student and what kind of interventions can we come up with, or motivations like that we didn't have in the past. To be able to do this mid-year is just, it's a huge advantage that I don't think every district has.
And this year we've added more assessments, progress monitoring throughout. Typically we've just done the 3 assessments, but now we've added them on a monthly basis. So we have that many more data points to know that the students are headed in the right direction.
So I find it interesting because it seems like math is kind of one that doesn't show as much change and growth. But when you look at 6, 7, and 8, between reading and math, it looks like the 6, 7, 8 reading is the bigger struggle than the math. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, I would say that once a student gets to, there's a lot there to unpack.
Okay.
But I would say as a lower middle level principal, it's much more difficult when a student has a reading deficiency to help support that.
At that point.
And sometimes it just becomes more difficult for them to engage in that because you're having years to make up. You're having to go back, and part of it would be I was a secondary ELA teacher. I was never trained to work with students on phonics, phonemic awareness. That is what they do, K, 1, 2. And so when they get to secondary, we have to help train those teachers and continue to do a better job of giving them the resources to say, here's what you do. Because if you have a student who's at 3rd grade or 4th grade, they're missing something. And as a secondary teacher, you tend to think it's comprehension, and it might be a bigger problem that we need to go back and fix before they can ever get to understanding what the text is about.
Okay.
There's a lot more to unpack there, I think.
I just thought it seemed a little bit odd. In my head, I was like, wait, this doesn't really follow. Interesting.
So how does this look year to year as you consider, as we sit in 23, 24, look at this versus prior years? Is there something there that you're tracking to see that we're making bigger gains, or I guess to Nick's point, smaller reds, or is there something that you're, or even to follow cohorts as
so
they?
Last year, one thing with math is last year we put in a new resource, and we knew that was kind of, teachers were asking for it, and so we said, let's get you a resource. We knew, I think we had hopes that would show right away. So we're hoping with the addition of that resource and more professional development this year that we'll continue to get students, that everybody kind of using the same resources and assessing students the same. I think that will help with the math piece. One of the things that we've noticed is we've had more success at the middle level, actually, just this year, the growth at a couple of our schools. They had, like, some of the numbers, if you look in the quadrants, and the highest bubbles in there are middle level. So our teachers are being more deliberate, and part of that, I would tell you, is because of the time they're spending as a team during their Wednesdays, actually coming together and saying, let's look at every kid. And then we've had several principals who put some questions in place, and so every week when they're looking at that data, what are we noticing? Who are the teachers who are making the most growth? Okay, let's talk to them. What are they doing? And then the principals do a very nice job of looking individually at teachers and at students and saying who has the most growth. And so if this teacher has, her class has 170% growth, which is not uncommon in some classrooms, what are they doing that we need to help? And so the elementary, just this past week, started having some data consults just to say, hey, let's look at your data. What are you doing? Here's what we're noticing. Maybe some of the classrooms that have higher growth, that's what they're doing. So what can we put in place to help them?
And to your point, we could look at that year-upon-year comparison like we do with our scorecard.
Yeah, I was wondering,
So
is
we
that
do
part
that
of
in
the
the-
Success Ready network? Is that something we would go to if we got to the point where we were distancing
absolutely-
ourselves
yeah,
from
right.
MAP?
Right.
I mean, this is what you would use, right?
This is aligned to the work of Success Ready Students Network. The tricky part is pick ELA or math, or, to your point, a cohort of students. Do you want to look at that growth from beginning to May and in between in the winter for that cohort that is truly reflective of the content area and the grade level they're in this year? Or do you want to compare them to last year's same content, same grade level cohort to see how they fared, right?
Right.
Or do you want to follow them
Year to
from
year.
the year to year to year to year?
How that grade
So those are all the conversations that we're having with Success Ready. So think of it, growth to readiness, readiness being readiness for high school, and how we monitor that cohort's progress and the individual kid, more importantly, from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade, right? So we can reflect some of that data. The caution is it gets muddy depending upon which of those pieces you want to see.
Yeah.
But ideally, if Success Ready is successful, then we will end up seeing more of that growth to readiness across years per individual kid, but then also per that cohort. So, good question.
I think the thing I want to, I think that we sit here and, part of it is we look at state report cards and we look at, APR, and we're thinking from a progress, how are we improving standpoint. When I look at this, I'm looking at, okay, this is the very surface level of information that's being collected for individual students that's impacting how we're making decisions to teach those individuals on a daily basis and how powerful that is, right? So, part of it is I'm trying not to look at this to say, okay, are we measuring right? Are we meeting thresholds for academic improvement, which is a goal for all of us, right? But what is this a measure of? And it really is those through assessments and how we're interacting with students and teaching students. And so, the one thing I would say is the concerns, Nick, that you had about kind of as that number, those red and pink areas creep, those are concerns, but I'm just thinking, 15 years ago, we didn't have tools like this to say, how are we reaching kids? So
I would also add, and just to clarify, I'd mentioned some of the middle schools. When you look at the 4 quadrants on the 2 pages about math and reading, those are grade levels that you see on there. So those aren't specific to a school, but those are grade levels, which I know you can't see. But when we look at math and we see 2 that are in low performance but high growth. So one of the things we did as a department was we said, okay, what grade levels are those? And then Dr. Schmitz, her job is to really go back and kind of look at what are our priority standards, what are we doing, what resources are we using, what other support can we give them? So we kind of know what grade levels those are right now that we need to dig a little bit deeper into.
You gonna leave us hanging?
And see how to support.
Which grade levels are they?
The two right there are 4th and 5th grade.
Okay, yeah.
The value is not only in the diagnostic tool, but in getting granular down to the interventions, whether it's the standards or objectives or instructional strategies, which the majority of these assessment tools have with them.
Yep.
So when we hone in on not only the diagnostic, but the interventions, you see it translate into increased results, right? The issue is everyone implementing it with fidelity?
Sure.
So,
Which I would assume the data is here and it would be masked in its completeness. But to see, are there attributes of, or correlations we can make of kids who stay in that kind of green level or have high growth and kids who stay in that red level? And as we talk about intervention potential, are there things that we can be doing to address something that may be more, I don't know, systemic's probably not the right word, but something that is similar amongst them?
you can disaggregate it, certainly.
Yes.
The caution is not to disaggregate it at this level.
For sure.
Disaggregate it at the building level, which is the value in the data team conversations,
Yes.
right? Let's look as a team at our students and how they're performing in our grade level, because we know them by name.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about what are those common characteristics, or what are those challenges, what are those advantages that these kids have, whether it's support at home or perhaps it's socioeconomic, whatever the case may be. That then translates into, let's take these actions to see if we can move that kid forward.
Yes.
So.
And I will tell you that we've done a great job with, especially with the reading success plans, of moving those students that are 2 or more grade levels below, of moving them.
Yep.
Where we need to continue to work is that the students who are already in the green,
Yes.
we're not moving them more.
Got it.
Right, so they're already high performing, but, and so we can't rest on that they're high performing.
Yep.
We have to continue to work with them.
And the irony is your current accreditation system penalizes you.
That's right.
Because your students are so high achieving in that they don't have the growth, because they're closer to the
Right.
ceiling, if
Yes.
that makes sense.
Of course, yes.
So we have some very high-performing schools that got close to no growth points because they are so close to that ceiling, which is indicative that something's wrong
Yes.
with the system, as far as the state system, so.
Dr. Moore, can I go back to the new math resources? Was that for K through 5 and only, or was that all the way up to 8?
It was K through 5, and so this year we have actually, we did an RFP to look at 6 through 8 in algebra. We had they picked a resource that they liked and would like to pilot, so we will be piloting that second semester, and there was some issues with it when they came, and so they're going to allow us to pilot it into the fall as well. So we will do that with big ideas.
And then is the feedback good so far from the elementary teachers on the K through 5 that we're using, or?
Yes, they like it. There are some online resources that we don't have, but we're working to get those for next year.
Okay.
The reading success plan tables, I guess this is, can you explain briefly what that growth, what are they measuring, I guess, as a percentage? Median percent typical growth? So it's just taking all those students in that category, that's the total number, and then it's monitoring how that, as a
Each
group.
individual student has like a typical, and Dr. Tucker, I want to speak to this, I don't know that I'll explain it as well, but a typical like stretch growth, like,
Okay,
so
right.
from where they
Yep,
were to
yep.
where they should be,
Mhm.
did they meet that growth?
Right, because, I mean, I'm just blown away on the 7th grade, there's 196% growth. I mean, that's for the 2 grade levels below. I mean, stuff like that is just shocking. I mean, something's going right there. And my other question with that, is there anything comparable for math?
Not yet.
Okay.
And to keep in mind, like, once you get into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, students start to then branch out, right, into whether it's a peak course or challenge by choice course or so forth. You're more able to do that K-5 Once you hit middle level, then that's where you start to get into your levels of math, right? The idea being, and starting with reading, obviously it's a state initiative, but the idea being that reading is really kind of the key ingredient to all content areas. Now, similarly, would you want something in math? Absolutely, to be able to ensure that students are on a similar path. The other piece I'll say, just broadly, we tend to find success anytime we focus and are intentional on a particular area. The caution is not to leave that area, in that it's not picking one content area over the other. It's really two tracks, reading and math, because that's what's assessed, and that's what we're held accountable to at this point. But then you also have the other content areas that are equally important, but then also honing in on those specific subgroup populations, and not losing sight of any of them as we continue to work.
And so much of the way we capture the others, the social studies and the science, is integrating that into the reading.
Sure.
So then we're still getting it. It's not that we're not addressing those things.
That's right.
So we're still getting them, but we're just, we know that that's a creative way to double our impact.
Other questions of Dr. Moore?
I have one. I've been waiting patiently. Two things. One, I was really happy to see, totally off this subject.
Okay,
We're moving. When Aaron Money put in there that they did music information as well as other information when they brought the fifth graders up to the middle schools. I like highlighting that kind of thing and doing it all at the same time. And since it's January and no one's been in school a full week yet, it's really nice that we're able to do that together. Is there any other particular area that they highlight besides just the music?
The arts in general is,
Okay.
is the main thing that they're trying to do to get students to spread their wings and see what options they have. And, we've had some back and forth. We used to do it. We didn't. We took a break from doing it. And so, doing it this past week, the fifth grade teachers loved it and the students loved it, just to be able to see what it was like and just to get an idea of all the offerings that there are.
Cool.
But we could certainly, we have like a sixth grade night, and so a lot of the times there we have teachers come from some of the different like practical arts areas and kind of talk about those that aren't specific to fine arts.
Nice. Because there's so many more choices once you get out of elementary that they have
And
to
it's no
figure.
high school too, so we do the outside groups. We just had something at North where they, you could go and learn about early college and CNA and all of those programs as well. So as you get into secondary, you have a lot of options.
And then kind of back into this iReady stuff, we're looking a lot at ELA and we're looking a lot at math. Is there anything, I'm not looking for more work, please make sure. But how are we tracking out, like how we're doing with social studies and science? Because those are also tested things.
So right now, the next step, what we're working on with science, is that the high school science teachers have asked to meet with the middle level science teachers to make sure that usually high school meets together and middle school meets together, and there's not that 6-12 meeting, and so science teachers have asked to come all together once they get all of their priority standards, competencies written out to make sure that they are, that it's kind of tracked all the way through and that it's aligned from 6th grade through 12th grade. So that's kind of the next piece. And I know social studies is a little bit more difficult because you have so many different classes, and you start to get into that with science as well. But science is, one of the things we heard from our teachers at the high school is kids get to them, and coming from different schools, they are using different vocabulary. So once students get to the high school, and that happens in math too, that they look at things a little bit differently. So we want to make sure that our kids are getting the same vocabulary all the way through. So that's kind of the next thing on Dr. Schmitz's agenda.
All right.
And that's your typical scope and sequence work that happens with your curriculum, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Moore. Next up, 4.2, Student Equity and Access. Dr. Dixon Seahorn.
Good evening. Good to see everyone.
It is my aim to be brief but spectacular.
Always.
Oh, my goodness. It is that time of the year, it is one of the most exciting times of the year for me, where we facilitate one-on-one meetings with all of our directors of the different departments. So on the academic end, that's of course innovation and learning, student equity and access, communications department, human resources, operations, just having those one-on-one conversations with the directors about where they are in their progress monitoring, if you will, around their equity goals as contained within their equity action plans. And as you know, we utilize the Smarty Go framework, and I did just provide just a reminder of what that stands for, with obviously the I and the E representing being more inclusive and then also equitable. Also pleased to share that the Department of Student Equity and Access, we were the hosts for Coffee with the Community for the January segment, and so there was an opportunity for me to share highlights from the department, including just some touch points from the December annual report, which we submit to the board, and then also an opportunity for the three directors to share how their departments increase equitable access for students. So kudos to those three directors, Dr. Meisenheimer, Dr. Cook, and Mrs. Bressman for their contributions. And though for those that were not able to view the Coffee with the Community segment, you can find that on the district's Facebook page. I also wanted to highlight from the Student Services Department that kindergarten enrollment will open officially on February the 1st. We're very excited about that. Just being mindful that the earlier the better. And then for special services, wanted to just emphasize that on February the 7th, that department will host another parent information night. The emphasis will be on the reading content area, kind of connected to what we're talking about just here now. And then any parents that have not been able to be a part of those meetings, they can go to the special services website, access the link, and then they can also view those prior meetings. So just wanted to share that information on this evening, and I'll gladly take any questions.
I don't have a question, but I just appreciated seeing in your report that you were doing professional development with our school-aged care. I thought that was phenomenal to see, and that I think this is just such an important program for us to have on site, and that we are prioritizing professional development about how they can best serve the diverse needs of our learners was really important. So thank you for sharing about that.
Thank you. And I think I saw that also in the operations report where it was just mentioned through the school-aged care program. I did have an opportunity that first day that teachers came back at the beginning of the semester, Ms. Lushin asked if I would just share around our belonging work with the team. I'd already had an opportunity earlier in first semester to connect with all the managers, and so all the managers were in the room with all the associates, so you're talking about like 100 people, and it was an amazing, amazing time. And it even included some testimonials from the managers about how they're implementing the belonging work and really partnering with school leaders in their buildings to just really be a part, an integral part of the school community and furthering the work of belonging. So thank you for that feedback.
Other questions of Dr. Dixon Seahorn?
I will run down while I can.
Thank you.
We're not that bad.
4.3 then finance. We'll turn it over to Ms. Cindy Sullivan.
Good evening. I have two donations to present to you tonight. A monetary donation of $500 from Mike and Mindy Feynman to the Lewis and Clark Counseling Team to support the Lewis and Clark families, and a donation of supplies valued at $4,961.38 from Office Depot Office Max to benefit the students and staff at Manor Hill Elementary. We appreciate both of those families and organizations for donating to the support of our students. We did receive our first installment of our county taxes, and happy to report that it came in very healthy, and we're running about 2% above collections that we received this time last year. So I'm very pleased to report that. And if you'll recall, county revenue is 40% of our operating budget, so we always need that to come in strong in January to prop up our spending in July through December when we don't have as much income. So we are very excited about that. We have also been working to lay out an investment plan for those excess funds that won't be needed until later on in the year to hopefully catch the last of the high interest rates as they will start going down. It's perceived that they're going to start going down in the future few months, so we're doing some planning to take advantage of laddering out our investments to gain as much interest income on that and then supply our cash flow needs as well. So we've been working on putting that portfolio together and hopefully make the most of what we can there. We have completed filing the required payroll forms with the government, so we're all put to bed for the calendar year of last year, which is always an exciting time for payroll to know that they've wrapped up that piece of it. It's a little nerve-wracking for them. We did have Team Liberty last week. I would like to thank Mr. Currens for attending and having some good conversations with him after that meeting. As you know, it starts the compensation season, so that also entails some of the work that the business office will be doing to prepare scenarios for Team Liberty when we have our next meeting on February 15th. And finally, the Audit and Finance Committee did review the documents, and I had several questions submitted, nothing of note to pass on to you, but they're always doing their job and asking great questions, so I do appreciate their service to you in that capacity. And that's my report for this evening. I would entertain any questions if you have them.
Any questions of Ms. Sullivan?
So what did Manor Hill do to get the money from Office Depot? Is it a secret and they're keeping it on the down low, or is it public knowledge?
It's a program of some type, and I don't have all of the details, but it's based on purchases from the public.
That's
it's
impressive.
I wonder if they alternate, like schools or something, I don't know.
It could be, and I can find out more details and share that with you, so.
Maybe they think that's the only elementary school we have.
They may have connections.
See where the Office Depot sends their kids to school.
I nominate Dan to tomorrow and report back on what the true circumstances
I'm going to have to go undercover.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. 4.4 then, our operations report. Mr. Anderson.
Good evening. A couple items I'd like to report. First, I wanted to recognize the Liberty Education Foundation as part of an ongoing partnership we have with them. They paid down a fairly significant amount of debt for our families that incurred the debt and then moved to free and reduced status. And so that's kind of part of that strategy to help families into that if they can qualify. So thank you to them. And then there's a couple projects we're working on just to kind of, I think we've talked a little bit about this in the past. First is our enrollment projections, demographer. We've begun those interviews, and we anticipate bringing that in front of you next month of February. And we're going to ask, most likely, that be considered on first read. We'll front load you, of course, with the interview status, just to help whoever is selected to get a jump start into the spring and maybe have a report out in the summer. So more to come on that front. And then we also mentioned, I think, a couple months ago that we're working pretty carefully on looking at our white fleet, which is near to 50 vehicles, and potentially moving those to a lease. We had a long meeting again today with Enterprise, who's within our co-op, with Ms. Sullivan and Jason Bright, and feel pretty encouraged as we're working on a plan. I think that's a really big step for us as a district, but there's more information there as well. Then last, just a quick bond update on a few of the projects. We're starting to mobilize on a couple of the sites. Epic, you see fencing going up, the Technology Center, the Distribution Center. South Valley and Discovery, we've been working very closely with those teams and transportation to strategize in and around how to move vehicles and buses through those sites. Once construction begins, a little challenging, but I think we've landed on a pretty decent plan there. And then lastly, a quick update on baseball. I think we still feel pretty encouraged that we're going to be able to get those projects wrapped up in time for the start of the season at the beginning of March. But the turn in weather the last couple weeks, and it was really those pretty severe transitions of heavy rain by a deep freeze has complicated things a little bit. So we're looking to see ways to motivate and expedite the work to get it done right and on time and ready for the baseball season. So we'll keep you updated on that as well. And with that, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Where's our contractor? He was very positive that we were playing.
Yeah.
Ready.
Yeah.
Eddie, the fleet lease piece, roughly what's the average age of our fleet today?
Boy, average, it depends on the need of the vehicle, but I think we've been trying to cycle out, probably in that 7-8 year range. It'll be recommended to shrink that down a little bit to get more value out of it. So we're targeting about a 5-year term.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that'll be a full-blown proposal.
Yeah.
As soon as it comes
Yeah,
out.
pretty formal. Yeah. I think really one of the bigger challenges is transportation is their fleet management department.
Yes.
Which makes sense.
Yep.
They have their hands full over there with not only running the department, but managing the yellow fleet.
Yes.
We need more attention there. And I think this is really a good solution to do that and free them up to kind of focus on the areas that they need to focus on.
So what kind of transition time? Would it be over 3 or 4 years?
About a 5-year, would be just,
So that's
say we take down a chunk and take down a chunk. Yep.
Okay. All right, so it would be, so there'd be, during that 5 years, you'd be dealing with both. Whoever's managing is managing both owned and getting up and running with a lease program.
We would, but the nice thing is they have a program where they can absorb the maintenance of the
Right.
fleet right out of the gate, right? So
Right.
we can get it under that same management system,
Okay.
which is the same technology and updated notification. There's real value to that. So our intention would be to move that over completely. Yeah.
Other questions of Mr. Anderson? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for all the work on the bond.
So 4.5 is our human resources report, and Dr. Marriott sends her regrets of not being able to be here this evening. She has a lot of information in her report from the department, much of which has to do with spring and hiring and where we are this time of year from our ENIP notification system and previous historical data, and total number of people that have applied for early notification intent to retire or resign are about 22, which is closer to the number we had seen in prior years prior to the last two. And so we're kind of getting back to hopefully what is normal. You'll notice the last 2 years we had a significantly higher number. You can also see the positions that are posted that we're working through the process of hiring. She was regretful of not being able to be here to provide additional information from her HR team and would like to push that into February. So we'll have a little bit more extensive report from her as it relates to stay interviews and other HR-related topics. So if you have any pressing questions, let us know and we will get them to her. And I'm sure she would love to turn that around as quickly as possible as far as your questions go. With that said, then moving on to the superintendent's report this evening, just a couple of highlights from my end. As you all recall, I appreciate being able to bring Scott Fuller in earlier this month at our study session to be able to give an overview of our spring strategic planning process. He was also able, I know, to connect with Dan Currents to get him up to speed as far as the presentation shared. You will also see an email from him in an effort to try to schedule one-on-one time
Yeah, have fun
with
that.
board members and trying to coordinate your calendars.
Really cool app, but I was
Yeah,
totally
so
confused.
be on the lookout for that if you've not seen it already in the coming days. Another item to share with you is that by the end of this month, by January 31st, the Success Ready Students Network is planning on presenting to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education the first concept draft tied to the work we've been doing over the course of the last really 6 months since August, in which they approved the innovation waiver to now. We will have a conceptual draft of assessment, what assessment ideally would look like under this revised system, but then also an alternative APR and an alternative approach to accreditation. This work then will take us further into submitting the federal waiver request to the U.S. Department of Education. And so there's a lot of work that's been done, but we're at a point now of sharing that information with the department, and we'll certainly share those finalized documents with our board for your awareness and that you've followed this work very closely as a school district. We're also getting ready to kick off our State of the District meetings. I believe if I counted correctly, we have over 22 meetings scheduled over the course of this next several weeks. Used to be early on when I transitioned, we would have 22 more formal presentations that would go a little bit lengthier. We've kind of approached this differently in that we send out YouTube video of our presentation, encourage people to view that, and then schedule shorter meetings at our buildings and departments with our cabinet present to be able to hit on a couple of quick highlights, but then also field questions and stick around for a few minutes to have conversations with our staff. So we always enjoy those times. Also working this time of year with continuing engagement opportunities. We appreciate the service of many of our families and volunteers that support individual students through mentoring programs or participation in PTA Council or Eagle Club, Blue Jay Nation, all of those different examples of engagement within our district. Coffee with the Community was mentioned. Dr. Dixon Seahorn and her department earlier last week. Upcoming will be a report from our Human Resources Department in February. Last thing that I wanted to share is as we get closer to the month of April, you'll learn more about candidates that are running for our board member seats. They will appear on the ballot in this order: Mr. Darren Siebert, Mr. Jeffrey Drew Marriott, and then Mr. Nicholas Nick Bartlow. And the election is on April 2nd. So you'll look for opportunities to hear more, whether it's in newsprint, through the Courier Tribune, or through candidate forums. I know the PTA is working on planning a forum, and so that'll be forthcoming. I believe it's in early March, around March 7th, to be exact. The other piece that we're watching this session is obviously, or this spring, is the legislative session. The State of the State address is scheduled for tomorrow with Governor Parsons. To sum it up, thus far, the legislative session has been slightly dysfunctional, but nonetheless, we're watching that closely with some interesting activity that occurred earlier this afternoon in the Senate. But we are monitoring bills. We were able to push out our legislative priorities to our legislators. I appreciate our administrative assistants for helping with that earlier last week, and so we look forward to engaging on topics pertinent to public education in the coming months. With that said, I would open it up for any questions you all may have of me.
The State of the District meeting, the
Yes.
series, so you'll be talking about the strategic plan, but that won't be part of the...
That's correct, yeah. So what we're doing is basically sharing with them the timeline to come.
Okay.
We're actually, side note, working on finalizing our survey today to be pushed out to staff. So right now, the presentation for our State of the District meetings includes an overview of enrollment. It includes our strategic plan, includes the timeline for this spring with strategic planning, in addition, bond projects, updates, and then wrap it up with, calendar, as far as calendar to being approved and so forth. So it's pretty high level. And then the actual engagement with G&D consultants will come separately. So this is just our annual State of the District updates.
But I guess I'm trying to think of the timing. I mean, we're doing these kind of starting next week or 2 weeks, and it's going to mid-February. Then when will those sessions with the community for the strategic plan start?
Those aren't scheduled yet.
Not, you don't have a time, is that
We have a
April?
rough guideline to have those concluded mid-March, so that then we can start looking at themes from the data and those.
Yeah, I just don't want to, I guess, it feels like they're going to be kind of stacked.
It'll be a juggle, for
on
sure.
one another,
For
and
sure.
I'm just wondering whether, as a parent or a priority standpoint, I guess I'd rather have them at the strategic session. If people are making a choice of, hey, I've got these two things happening.
Keep in mind, the State of the District meetings are at the building level
Yeah.
and the departmental level for staff. And then Scott will be back on February 6th and 7th to pick up with the dates that were postponed or paused earlier in January
Yeah.
with the focus groups,
Yeah.
both staff and students, and then we'll just continue to do more of that as we go. So the flexibility is key here, particularly with the inclement weather, and then trying to map it out as best as able. But yes, it will be busy.
Yeah.
So
Is State of the District something recorded and available?
the presentation will be, we're actually
Okay.
doing that tomorrow.
Okay.
And we'll push that out to the board, and then we'll share that with the rest of the district later this week. Our goal is to send it out next week through the communications department to our faculty and staff. and then follow it up starting on Monday with those meetings scheduled over the course of the next several weeks.
But it'll
Again,
be
this is what we
available
do
to the
each year.
public.
It is intended for staff
Okay.
primarily,
Okay.
but
I missed that.
much of the data is shared in Coffee with the Community, or it's shared at our Education Foundation Community Breakfast, so
Okay.
there's really no surprises. There's
Okay.
nothing that isn't publicly available.
Okay.
On the Success Ready submission, when you submit that on the 31st, then will there be a scheduled meeting for the state board where you will also present, or what, do you know what the next?
That
what are
piece
they-
is not scheduled yet, so
Okay.
the submission by the 31st is to the department.
Okay,
And then certainly relaying that information, content, to the state board through their means, but we don't have a formalized presentation scheduled yet with the State Board of Education. There's also a desire within our Success Ready Student Network districts to ensure that we're able to share that content and information with the incoming commissioner, who should be up to speed, but just to ensure that there's hopefully that transition and support for the work. Okay?
Any other questions?
I just want to comment for Dr. Marriott that I've really noticed all of the ads for the postings for employment opportunities. I've seen it at the DMV, I've seen it on the bulletin board, I've seen it so many places, so it's great.
And the series that Dallas
That's right.
highlighted earlier, that was really a joint effort through HR to be able to focus in on the good work across the system. So you'll see more and more of those push video pieces as well. So thank you for that.
Unfinished business?
Under unfinished business, we have brought back the 24-25 EPIC calendar, and that we have a slight revision. As you all know, the professional day in April tends to move. It's formally associated with Good Friday, and that moves from time to time. At EPIC Elementary, as that day was cycled off, we omitted, accidentally, a professional development day in April 11th. So the draft you have uploaded, or the revised draft revision, has one additional line item, and that's April 11th, the inclusion of a professional development day in which students are not in session. This day is used primarily for readying for the following school year, and talking with Dr. Schmitz as well as Jamie Ackert over at EPIC Elementary, and wanted to make sure and capture that, and then of course message that to EPIC families impacted for the 24-25 school year.
I move the board approve the 2024-2025 EPIC calendar as revised.
Second.
Nick?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next up?
New
New
business, yep, under 6.1, real estate sale agreement. We'll turn it over to Mr. Anderson to walk us through this item.
Thank you. This is for property that we own down at 1138 Southview Avenue, which is where the facility center is located. As you're aware, we've been working on, as part of the bond, building a new building down there, which will be the distribution center. As part of that work in master planning, we realized that of the 27 acres that the district bought down there, when we bought that site in 2018, we've been leasing the space since '07. So in '18, we purchased that entire acreage for $1.2 million, so we bought that. So of those 27 acres, we realized there's about 16 that, due to topography and lay of the land, we simply have no use for, neither short nor long term. And so we decided that it might be in the best interest of the district to post it for sale. Brought that all to you. Move forward, we conducted an appraisal. The appraisal came back valuing that $435,000. We posted it for sale and received one bid at that very same amount for the appraised value, and that's with Star Development, Mr. Tim Harris. And so we are recommending that this could be considered tonight on first read to allow this to move forward. And it's just a simple real estate agreement of surplus property. We did carefully follow all the statutory policy guidelines on the posting of the property. And so with that, if you have to take any questions, I would appreciate consideration of this tonight.
Can we have you read the resolution that Denise asked for coordinates as one of us.
I volunteered. Are we ready for the resolution, or do we do questions first?
Sorry.
Okay. Resolution of the Board of Education of the Liberty Public School District Number 53, authorizing the sale of real property to Star Development Corporation. Whereas the Board of Education has determined that the real property described in the attached real estate sale agreement between the Liberty Public School District Number 53 District and Star Development Corporation buyer is no longer required for the use of the district, and whereas it would be in the best interest of the patrons of the district for the district to sell to the buyer the real property described in the attached agreement upon the terms and conditions provided therein, therefore be it resolved that the agreement attached hereto is hereby approved and the President of the Board of Education is authorized to execute same. And further, be it resolved that the President is hereby approved and authorized to take such actions and to enter into any related agreements or negotiations in connection with the sale of the property pursuant to the agreement, to execute any necessary or desirable amendments thereof, and to execute such documents, agreements, and certificate as the President shall deem necessary or advisable, including any and all closing documents, all upon such terms and conditions as such person deems to be in the best interest of the district. And further, be it resolved that the deed of conveyance shall be executed by the President of the Board of Education and attested by the Secretary of the Board of Education.
I move the board approve the resolution authorizing the sale of real property to Star Development Corporation as read.
Second.
Nick,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
motion carries.
Next up, on construction.
We'll let Mr. Anderson continue with item 6.2.
So as we've discussed in the past, when we have, as related to the bond work, some bid work and construction work that has a significant value, we've opted to bring that in front of you instead of taking the consent. Tonight, we have 5 different packages that we're presenting. 2 of them are relatively minor, but we just decided to put them in here rather than consent since we're presenting these other ones to you already. The first one is with ABC Creative, and that's for $1.5 million, and that's for 3 playgrounds. That's the first wave of our new playground installs, and that would be at, I wrote that down.
Shoal Creek, Franklin, Warren Hills.
Yeah. And those all are built with ADA compliance in mind, and then also designed to serve all of our student population. So they're very intentionally working in partnership with a variety of groups to kind of put that together. And so that would be the first one with ABC Creative. The second item is related to the distribution center, and this was, we didn't have any bids on the first round with the significant packages. These were kind of follow-up related to fire protection. That was for $155,000. The third one is the tech center in the similar vein, where we had some fire protection issues that we had to address, and that came in at $61,000. The fourth one are the elementary remodels, and this one we packaged together Ridgeview, Donovan, and Franklin, and put that into one bid. That would be Ridgeview restroom, nurse work, administration space, and LED. Franklin is the secure entry, nurse space, admin space, restroom, and LED. And Donovan is the nurse, admin space, sped enhancements, and restroom, and LED. So all that work would be scheduled to start this summer, and so that all total is around $4 million. And then last is Heritage. That's phase 1, by the way. And then Heritage also for phase 1. The total value of that is right at near $10 million. That's primarily in the 64 building, which is the one that's furthest or closest to Kansas. Significant renovations in that building, including also the kitchen and cafeteria area remodel, significant masonry work and window work, LED, and some restrooms. So those are the 5 bid packages in front of you. I'd be happy to take any questions.
I know we see the bid tabulations on the ones from Newkirk, Novak. Just to confirm, the playground process went through our normal bid process, right? For evaluation?
That may have been within our co-op.
Okay.
Because we do have that capability there. I'd have to verify that.
Okay.
I know if it if it wasn't put out to bid, it was because it was in the
Yep,
co-op.
because of the co-op.
It's a lot of work there.
And on these renovations, there's lots of alternatives that are part of it. Are all the alternatives being included in the bid, in what we're approving?
Right, nearly all of them were accepted. A couple times, like a good example for Heritage, we called it out, the kitchen cafeteria as an alternate, even though we know we're going to do it, we wanted to isolate the costs. So some of those alternates were simply to be able to kind of get greater visibility to some of the work. Some of the alternates were things that we wanted to see how the bidding came in, and if it was pretty healthy, then we were going to fold them in. And I think for the most part, we were able to kind of fold in the alternates, especially at Heritage. I think that was the big one we wanted to fold them in on.
And, I mean, is it safe to assume that, I mean, all five of these, are these primarily summer starts, or are there these renovations, are they able to go while school's in session?
It'll be a very busy and hectic summer, and I think some of this work will bleed into the fall. I think Heritage is the one that's going to be some of the initial conversations, planning and around operating with it. I mean, it's pretty intensive. They feel very confident if you kind of pull it off. But yes, this work will commence pretty quickly here as we pivot towards the summer.
And will it affect summer school?
Yeah, we've long planned on, because we know what's happening, so when we select sites, we keep that in mind. And so the buildings that are listed here are not going to have summer school for this very reason.
Yeah.
I move the board approve the contract with AB Creative Incorporated and the bids for the distribution center, district technology remodel, Phase 1 elementary remodels, and Phase 1 HMS remodels.
Second.
Nick?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Board policy revisions.
You have 3 categories of board policies under 6.3, but only one being presented to you this evening on second read for action. That is policy EHB, technology usage. We saw that back in December, and you may recall under one of the paragraphs tied to safety and technology usage, we've inserted artificial intelligence as kind of an emerging area of focus. We will have subsequent revisions or changes to board policy and procedure later on as it relates to working with other entities and associations around artificial intelligence. The other categories, one is a category of policies for first read that then you'll see again in February. Our administration has been looking at that to ensure that it aligns with our current practice. If you have thoughts, questions, comments, please let us know over the course of the next month prior to the February meeting. We'll certainly try to get answers for you. And then lastly, a set of administrative procedures. So just the one for your consideration this evening.
Move the board approve policy EHB.
Second.
That was really fast.
Sorry, you can discuss, my bad.
No, it's just very short.
Did we run it through ChatGPT to see if it had any recommendations?
Whatever.
Well played.
Not yet, because we didn't have the policy.
Now we can.
Nick?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Contracts and purchases.
I'll turn this back over to Mr. Anderson to walk us through.
This must be the Steve Anderson show tonight.
Thank you. This is an emergency purchase that we, in working with the Fine Arts Department and an outside entity, I don't even know if they have a name, had decided to raise money to be able to allow us to host an event for fine arts at the Kaufman Center in, I think it's March 17th, in around that time period. And so the fundraising is, I think, going quite well. In order to be able to sell tickets in a timely manner, we had to kind of secure this contract in place with Kaufman, and it had to be with the district. They weren't going to do it with some entity, other entity. Then there's insurance purposes for that as well. So we agreed to go ahead and do that, expedite it for that very purpose of being able to sell the tickets and allow the project to move forward, and also allow us to obviously secure the space. So legal has reviewed this. We feel confident that that is in good shape. and would just ask that you would confirm its approval tonight.
I have one question. This is the Hawthorne Bank. Is it just our two schools performing at those two different times, or
So
are there
there-
other schools performing in that
They have
space?
done something similar for other districts, notably Blue Springs and Lee Summit. We have, I believe, a 2 p.m. concert and a 7 p.m. concert. Band, orchestra, choir will perform, there's 6 of them, right? 6 different groups. They'll perform separately, and then the Liberty North group will combine for a final piece. The Liberty High School group will combine for a final piece as well.
But
So
there
they've
won't
done it
be
several
other
times.
schools or districts or
Only our
places,
district.
just our own.
Our district on that day, I believe it's March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, morning, or sorry, afternoon, and then evening
Do you know if
concert.
they abut, do they join, like, no,
It's like
there's
one-
time in between?
There is a gap
Yeah,
between to
there's
allow for that transition.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll have more information as we get closer to that to get out, so.
I move the board approve the agreement with Kaufman Center for Performing Arts.
Second.
Nick?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Board of Education, Legislation and Advocacy.
Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Anderson, you have any insights on that?
No, thank you.
There has been a lot of stuff going on, but nothing seems to be getting
Sticking?
finished. Am
Well,
I
they-
correct in that?
Way too early
They
in the
removed some
session.
of them from the floor today, didn't they?
They
They moved
had,
committee
From committee
chairs
chairs.
and took their parking spaces.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's a fate worse than death. So is there anything big that we need to be aware of?
Open enrollment is getting traction.
Yes.
That is the big piece. And then we talked last year, I believe it was the bill out of the Joplin area. This year it has a different number. I want to say it's 814, which is more local control for districts when it comes to assessment, accountability, and accreditation. And so giving districts flexibility to either adhere to whatever DESE puts out, MSIP 6, for example, or leverage creating their own system. That's where Success Ready comes into play. And then an alternate of being able to partner with an external provider when it comes to accreditation, similar to Cognia, and what we've done every 5 years. So I think if that were to move forward, we have flexibility, greater flexibility from what we currently have. The question is, if that moves forward, where does it converge with the work of Success Ready? And so there's still a lot of questions around that, but that's gotten quite a bit of attention as well, along with just the general chaos that's going on in the legislature and filibusters and pulling of committee assignments and so forth, which, if you're following it, there's a question of higher political aspirations by some of these folks that are involved, and whether that's caught up in politics or parties just really trying to pull themselves together. So that's probably the nicest way of saying it.
So is someone attending the
Yeah, don't we have a-
advocacy day? Or,
Thursday night, you're talking about the legislative dinner?
no, in Jeff City?
Oh, like the
Advocacy
In-
Day?
big day?
Yeah, are you?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
planning-
go.
Are you going?
I can, now that I'm not
Was
otherwise
AJ
occupied.
planning to go?
I know he has in the past.
Okay, so we'll have a
so-
few people.
Yeah. And then I believe someone else mentioned the Cooperating School Districts event. That's coming up this Thursday, of which legislators will attend and provide their update. So I know we'll have a few people from Liberty attend that as well.
Jim was making the point too that we have somebody go to get the credit for the governance award, right? Is that what you were talking about?
No, but that too.
Well, that works. That works.
Who's going to the dinner Thursday?
I am.
I am.
No.
Okay.
I'll be at a conference.
But we'll see you on Friday.
Yes, Friday.
Yeah. Friday there's some
Hopefully they
band
haven't, they didn't
doing.
get to do it today.
They didn't?
Well, that's what they told me downstairs. They didn't get to go to MMEA, did they?
Yeah, they did.
Warren Hills?
They did.
Oh, they did?
They did. They got to go.
Downstairs, they said that it was a snow day, so they didn't get to go.
No, they were down there.
Well, I'm glad they did, because I know a
Yay.
fifth grader who was really
Yay.
excited about that.
And I was glad Battle of the Brains went forward too, so that was good, like to
Yeah.
have our kids down there.
Well, because if you live south of the river, you didn't have a snow day.
That's right.
They had theirs
Except
yesterday, we
yesterday.
had ours today.
There you go.
Just works that way. Anything else?
Are we on board remarks?
Yes.
Okay. I was just going to say that, the Martin Luther King Jr. Day event was very nice. Dr. Tucker did a great job. I know he loves public accolades. AJ did a great job. AJ's not here, but I just wanted to say what a wonderful presentation it was, and just good community event.
And everybody should also plan to go to Uncorked on March 2nd.
Yes.
So
That's always fun.
it is really fun to support the Liberty Education Foundation.
I know it always doesn't work out, but I'm glad we were able to open up our facility to host that Martin Luther King opportunity as well.
And I was quick to tell them to let us know how we can assist next year, and we have multiple locations if they want to mix it up. I know William Jewell enjoys having it up on their campus as well, so moving forward, it may be a combination of those three sites, Liberty High, Liberty North, William Jewell, but that's a ways off. But again, credit to Clay County African American Legacy Incorporated for putting on another great event, as Drew said, year number 40. So they've done this in some form or fashion for 40 years, and are always good also about highlighting students, whether it's Jewel or some of our students, and allowing them to perform. A lot of talented young people. So
That's right, it was the Liberty North Choir, and then Jordan Nassim from Liberty
Yep.
High School was our poet. So
Yep.
that's great.
Any other comments?
Move the board adjourn.
Second.
Nick?
Yes, I was going to
Yes.
say that too.
Jen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
How much was that machine?
Oh, I thought it